Okay, I'd like to call to order Tuesday, September 21st, 2021, the council meeting. And I'd like to ask the mayor to lead us in an invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Glad to. Thank you. Please bow with me. Lord, thank you once again for the wonderful city that we live in, the country that we have. We ask that you watch over our citizens. We ask that you give wisdom to our city council tonight to make sound and right decisions. We ask that you also lay your healing hands on those people in our town and in our community and around the world that are fighting different disease, illnesses, and whatever troubles they have. We ask that you watch over us all and that we do what we do in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Ms. Haley, if you would call the roll, please.
Mayor Shute.
Here.
Bishop.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here.
Detman.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here. Okay. Business from the audience. If you have any business that you would like to discuss with council, if you will see Ms. Haley, she will put you, she'll give you a form to fill out and we'll put you on the agenda at a later point in time. If it's already on the agenda, just wait for the item to come up and you'll be given a chance to speak at that time. All right. Mayor's report.
Just a couple things that, thanks to Carmela Garcia, we had a nice little 9/11 event on the circle. Did a good job and got it finished like 2 seconds before it rained, so. But it held up till the end, and but it was very nice, and thanks for PD and the fire department for their participation in that. It helped out a bunch, and actually had the colors for the PD, so appreciate what those guys do every day anyway. The second thing is kind of bittersweet, but something that we have to do every once in a while is that we honor an individual, and I don't think is Lane here? Lane's not here, but Lane Padelford has been with the city for 24 years and is retiring at the end of the month. So we have a little proclamation that we will present to her, and it says, whereas Lane Padelford began her career with the City of Sebring Building Department in September of 1997 as a permit specialist. Whereas Lane was promoted to the position of zoning clerk in May of 2008. Whereas Lane continued to perform her duties in the building department in addition to the responsibilities of zoning clerk. Whereas Lane has served the citizens of the City of Sebring and the building zoning department for 24 years. Whereas Lane Padelford is retiring from her position as both the building and zoning clerk on September 30th, 2021. And whereas Lane Padelford's knowledge of the building and zoning department will be missed. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor, city clerk, and members of the city council of the City of Sebring do hereby convey their sincere appreciation for the years of dedicated public service rendered in the city and its citizens. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause a seal of the City of Sebring, Florida, to be affixed this 21st day of September in the year of our Lord 2021. So, thanks a lot to Lane, even though she's not here. She's been a big part of this city for a long time, and she'll be missed. So,
Absolutely.
that's all I have.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Council members' concerns, comments, liaison reports. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Carlisle.
John took mine.
Sir?
Sorry
John
about that.
took mine.
No.
I was going to talk about the 9/11. It was a nice, well, it was nice. But the rain did run us off. So.
Mr. Stewart?
No report.
No report.
Mr. Bishop?
Oh, I had my first HRTPO meeting last week.
And how was
Thank
that?
you for all that. It was still trying to catch my breath, I think. There's a lot to take in with that one. But it was interesting. They're doing a study on which roadways in the 6 counties that we work with that are causing the most traffic fatalities. I don't know that anybody will be surprised by any of them, but it's mind-numbing, I think.
Okay, and for those in the public that don't know what's the HRTPO, that's Heartland Regional Transportation Planning Organization, and that's long-range planning. So it's nice to have a young guy that may actually live to see some of these new roads built on that
It's a highly
committee.
coveted position.
Wow.
That's good, Charlie.
And as
It's coming from a guy that just turned 70.
that's right. So I may not see too many of those. I just had a birthday a couple of weeks ago, so thank you, Mayor, for reminding me. Okay, and I have nothing to add to that. The consent agenda,
I make a
Entertain
motion,
motions?
we accept the consent agenda as proposed.
I'll second that.
have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments from the public in regards to any item on the consent agenda? Any comments or other concerns from council members? Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Detman,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lorenz.
Yes. Okay, we have no old business, so we're gonna get on to the new business. 10A is request for release of declaration of covenant for property located at 3297 Gulfview Road. Mr. Derek Hodges has requested this. And before we get started on that, I just want to say, if there's anybody out here in the audience, we're not annexing any property tonight. That is not what this is about. But if there is anybody that, other than Mr. Hodges, that wants to speak on this, then I'm going to just ask that you limit yourself to about 3 minutes, and we'll listen to anyone that wants to comment on it. So, Mr. Hodges.
Thank you for entertaining my request. I know at the last meeting, and one of the last comments was, you know how tough it is to make everybody happy. I'm doing my best. My wife and I have lived at 4210 Lafayette Avenue, Derek Hodges and Kimberly Hodges, for 20 years now. We actually got married in the house. We have a beautiful sunrise every morning from our bedroom, straight down the fairways, and we have a beautiful sunset from the front lounge in the evening. So it was a real shocker, as I mentioned last time, to find out about the possibility of going in the city. And I set about trying to, first of all, speak with Jason, and I appreciate, is Jason here? Thank you, Jason, for agreeing to sell the property for $1.15 million. We closed the contract subject to you guys agreeing to let us keep the place in the county. I did my due diligence. I'm still in the process of doing that. We just got the survey yesterday, and basically I'm still in that process, but basically October 5th is the closing date on the contract. So I know the next city meeting is that evening. I'm optimistic once you've heard what we've got in mind for what we're going to do, that you will maybe on that October 5th let everybody know we're no longer in the possibility of being annexed into the city. What are we going to do with the property? Good news is no water, no sewer. I surveyed all my wonderful neighbors. I actually did, I thought I could do it myself, but I actually hired a young lady for 2 days. She knocked on all the doors around the golf course, managed to make contact with about half the residents. We have 15 residents that would like to buy the lot behind them or across the road from them. And my wife and I are going to try and make it as favourable as possible because we really want to see the whole place stay in the county. Behind those plots that we sell to the 15 that wanted it, we also asked everybody if they'd like a dog walking trail or nature trail behind that. 17 of our neighbours, of the approximately half that were canvassed, would love to have an area where they can walk their dogs. One of the problems we have, I don't know if you have it in the city, but when we're walking our little dog, who's 14 now, we're taking her to Kentucky the day after next, and we're doing the bourbon trails, and I'm speaking at a conference in Mount Sterling, Kentucky on Saturday. But one of the problems we have walking our dog in the street is traffic, is other dogs coming out from the back of neighbours' houses. So we would like to do a nature trail. My wife and I are going to set up a separate corporation to do that. And basically, you are basically looking, if you vote for this, and I hope you do, because we all want it, is basically, I don't think we'll be absorbed into the city for a long, long time, because we'll do the covenants and things to protect us. We want to stay in the county. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from council members? Mr. Detman? Mr. Bishop? Mr. Stewart?
Congratulations.
Are you sure you mean that?
I do.
Okay, well, good. We do have a little bit more due diligence to do, having got the survey. And one of the things we're going to be asking you to do for us is there's a little triangle of land. I didn't know I was buying part of the city. Did anybody here know that on that land I'm buying is part of the city? Anybody on the council? One. It was a real shocker because I zoomed in on the interactive map and I found out that half the building, the maintenance shed of the golf course, and the entrance is a piece of triangular land which is in the city. This is all rather quick to absorb, but basically I'd like you to, at the same time, when we get back here on the 5th, to let me have that back in the county. I know many years ago, I believe in 1974, the whole side of my golf course was in the city. And the council at that time voted to put it back in the county. So please, this $50 is the value of that, which surprises me, it's very low. Hell, if you could build a little house there, you could live very cheaply with $50 value for the year. But please, let me have that back, otherwise it's going to complicate my closing. I don't want to have a piece of the city when I hand over the other 1.1 million on October 5th.
Okay, Mr. Hodges, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Jason to come up, and he is the present owner of that property, and he is the one that had asked to be annexed into the city. And with all due respect to Mr. Hodges, you don't own the land yet, and so I believe you're going to have to be the one that asks for that to
Yeah.
be rescinded.
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask for the declaration to be rescinded. So Mr. Hodges will go ahead and purchase the property. We had scheduled a closing for tomorrow, which I still would like to see happen at that date, because then I think it'd be very clear that Mr. Hodges owns a property and make your vote, on next. I know on October the 5th is the vote, and I know that, assume intentions are, that it won't matter anymore, but it would sure clear it up to have it all your property at the time, so they know for sure, So, but I'm asking to rescind it, yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to just ask Mr. Swain is there anything you would like to add to this or make us aware of?
You could. I don't recall the city council ever canceling or rescinding a declaration of covenant. Doesn't mean they didn't perhaps many years ago. We have not de-annexed part of a property that is in the city. Maybe they did that in the 70s. Certainly we've had people ask to de-annex other parcels that are in the city that they didn't really want to be in the city, and we thus far have not done that. So that's something to bear in mind. The southwest portion of Highland Lakes Reserve comes to mind. It's a single large lot that essentially fronts 66, and the different prospective buyers over the years have asked to have that de-annexed out of the city. So with that, if you're not intending to run water and sewer to the parcels anytime soon, then you won't have the connection fees to collect in connection with the declaration. So you may not wish to do it that way. I think you can rescind it. I don't know who may come next and ask for similar rescission of a declaration of covenant on their parcel. Sitting here, I can't tell you that anybody else wants to, but my guess is there's somebody that would want to come in and have the same thing done for them.
Okay. All right.
This is probably, though, one of the only ones where he had different intentions and wanted to bring it into the city, where most of the people that have signed a declaration are utilizing those services
Right.
right now, so.
Right.
I think it's probably a little bit different than a normal situation.
Some wanted the guarantee of, utility capacity. They
Right.
wanted to know that they weren't going to get cut off from it, because that was central to a longer-term plan, even if they weren't planning on using the service then. This is different. If it remains undeveloped, I don't know that it provides a great deal of benefit to the city to have, and you'd be providing services
Right.
without any real ad valorem, or not even really some of the non-ad valorem
Yeah.
to offset the cost of the services you'd be providing.
The whole premise of the covenant was to provide for future development, and right now there's not gonna be any. So I don't have a problem with this, personally.
Not using services, so.
Right. Right.
Just because you have a covenant doesn't mean it's gonna be annexed in, though. And, we have properties that should have had covenants on it years ago, and we will never get them. I don't think we should let go of the covenant. It doesn't mean we have to annex the property in the next 10 years. And I think we should hang on to the covenant. We're not saying we're annexing it, we're just hanging on to the covenant. So if it ever does get developed, we'll already have that.
They, just going down that train of thought though, if they ever develop it, they're gonna have to ask for city services,
Yeah.
so we'll get it at that
They're
time.
gonna want water and sewer. And then we'll get them.
Yeah, and that'll be better because that'll be you, not me.
You're a lucky man, Jason. I don't have 7 kids.
You're right about that.
Mr. Detman, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, I think this presents an unusual set of circumstances that will be probably very difficult to see replicated anytime in the future. So, taking that into consideration, I think the thoughts that Mr. Stewart has brought forward is something that I could support.
Would you make this contingent upon closing, Derek?
And would it be better to consider this to be a waiver under the new owner's proprietorship rather than just a straight up release of covenant? What I'm thinking is, instead of releasing the covenant, could it maintain there from a legal perspective and just give a waiver under the current circumstances with the proposed ownership, and then any subsequent owner after that, we still have the waiver in place then? That's my question.
I mean, because it's been recorded.
Right.
I think you would typically file something else, cancellation or some other document that references the prior recorded document. So, I think you could consider that you are taking action based on the new owner's position that he doesn't care to develop it like the previous owner did. And so that can certainly stand as the rational basis for why you may treat this request different than somebody that wants to back theirs out because they don't want to do the more intense development that they might have once wanted to do.
So then, considering that, it still doesn't preclude us at some point in the future with maybe a subsequent owner to Mr. Hodge to annex that particular property because it's contiguous with the city of Sebring regardless.
So it could be annexed even in the absence of a declaration of covenant, if you had sufficient resident votes and acreage to offset this.
Okay.
It'd probably be hard to do because of its size, but any realistic development of that property needs water and sewer, so they would be likely to come and get it from the city in lieu of trying to build their own, package plant and
Oh, exactly.
and water
Yeah,
system.
Yeah, that would be cost prohibitive. Okay, I'm good with Mr. Hodges' request then.
Mr. Bishop?
Oh, he kind of summarized what I was gonna ask, if there was any way to retain it, but
You could simply tell the owner, we're not going to enforce it at this time. I don't know that gives him the comfort that he's looking for. But yes, you aren't required to rescind it. You aren't required to do anything. You can rescind it, you can hold it and say, we're just not gonna do anything with it for a while or a long time.
For the foreseeable future.
Foreseeable future. You've got flexibility on how you wanna handle it.
Okay. Well, my concern with it is that, especially now that Mr. Hodges has said what he wants to do with it, which is split it up into a lot of different little lots, it's going to be hard to get everybody to sign these covenants, as some of them may want to develop their little lot, and some of them may not. And so some of them may want some services, but they'll be, you know, way down the road, so to speak, and there'll be no covenant for them to necessarily get that. They may sign the covenant, but we may end up running a water line then, you know, 2 blocks, 3 blocks down the road. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna make a unity of title requirement on anybody that buys a lot from us.
We can.
Yeah.
Mr. Hodges,
Oh,
if you
sorry.
could
Yeah.
speak into the microphone, that way it records you better. Thank you.
My wife and I can get to the microphone. Our goal is to maintain the golf course in the county. When we sell the lots, we're going to require a unity of title. Then we may do some other language to make sure. I'm going to seek my attorney's advice on that. I'm trying to make sure everybody's protected. I've got kids right now of parents that live on the golf course, worried. They bought their house 2 years ago. I got people worried that the survey stakes are not where the white posts were. They're actually in their shed. I got a lot of issues to take care of, but that's the beauty of working together. And so I'm going to try my best to make sure, no, we're never. My wife will probably live 20 years longer than me, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that nobody ever manages to get that beautiful golf course into the city. Okay, and it's going to be Mike Swain is my attorney, has been on 6 closings, and the guy knows a lot. I've never talked to Bob before. I was amazed when I found out. Mike's son is now the city attorney, so I've got good advice, but I want to avoid any conflict of interest. This whole discussion, I had half an hour's notice from the last meeting, and I'm basically just crossing my fingers that I can keep the whole golf course out of the city for the next 50 years. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any comments from the public? Please just state your name for the record, if you would, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Jeff Carlson for the record. I'm not getting up to speak against this particular project. It's a unique situation, I think, in the city, but what's not unique are 2 points that I wanted to bring up. And I stand here as someone who was not voluntarily signed a declaration of covenant to annex, but someone who was coerced and forced into signing one. I was also annexed, not wanting any city services, but forced to pay for them and pay several $1,000s to connect to them and then have them, even though when we didn't want them. And I think you would find the same thing if you ask the people that you just annexed all the commercial properties along the highway. I believe the majority of them would say that they did not voluntarily want to come into the city of Sebring and had no problem paying the extra premium that they paid to receive the services. The second point is clarification for Mr. Swain, that my understanding is that residential properties has to go to a referendum, so declaration of covenant is irrelevant. If someone owns a residential lot and they come to you and say, I want residential lot, they don't sign a declaration of covenant. In order to annex all that property, you have to have a referendum and they have to vote to do it. It has to be 51% or
If they agreed, if the owner of the property agrees.
each
then-
individual property if they're contiguous.
So for this parcel right now, there's a single owner. If the single owner signs on, then that is sufficient to count as a voluntary annexation, even though, for instance, we annexed in a mobile home park that has a single owner that rents the units to the folks that live there.
Right.
A single vote for the annexation was all that was necessary, and there was no referendum required.
But if they're all turned into single-family lots, and then they want to run sewer and water lines, you can't just pick and choose who you annex. They all have to go together in order to get annexed.
The annexation has to be, they have to be a group. You can't pick one here and then one jump over here and pick one. They have to be connected. They have to be contiguous to each other. If there are parcels sold off, I believe these aren't platted lots. I believe it is a single lot. So if there are lots split off of it, then that has to be platted, which would come back to council. That doesn't mean you have to require annexation for that. It just means excuse me, that'd be a county, sorry, county approval of the plating. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that individual property owners, if it's cut up into a couple hundred lots, each of them would have to vote to be there. Declaration of covenant doesn't work the same way it does on commercial property or a single owner.
If they all get utility services under the city's ordinance, the precondition for getting that is signing the declaration of
And you
covenant.
can force the residential units to do
Yes,
that
sir.
too.
Mhm.
Okay.
You wouldn't have to have a referendum.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any
But
other-
certainly if it's split up, it is much harder to gather them all than when you've got a single owner at the outset.
Okay. Any other comments? Come up and tell us who you are and what you have to say.
My name is Bonnie Smart, and I live at 3906 Medina Way. I'm the last house on Medina Way, starting from the Lake Drive Boulevard. The first 5 houses are city. I am the 5th house. I'm city. I pay city and county taxes. And I'm a bit confused, and I'm all in favor of this proposition, but I'm a bit confused does this include those of us who are in the city? I'm confused on this.
I don't believe he is asking for any change to your property.
Okay.
He's not buying your property.
Okay, what about the portion of the golf course across the street from those of us who live in the city? What's happening there?
That's what he's talking about.
He's talking about all of that? He's talking about the
I think
entire,
She may be in the first
I
half.
think she's in,
I'm-
I
Oh,
think
the
she
other-
may be in the
portion.
Sebring portion, so.
I'm in the city. I'm in the city
Right.
portion.
And I believe the portion of the golf course across from you is also in the city.
City, mhm.
It's about right in that range.
It's right there at the end of my
The
lot.
fourth or fifth lot, right?
I'm number 5, and
So,
that's,
so I don't know, a developer has bought that property, but has not
and what is the
approached
plan for that?
He's not approached the city yet.
Okay, because my speaking was going to be on the use of that property. I'm all in favor of this other situation as well, but, so I guess that I don't need to be
So.
saying
so
anything
if-
else about that at
If
this
and when he
time.
comes to the city to rezone the property, and he may not have to rezone the property dependent upon what he's gonna do with the property, okay?
And that's our concern.
Right, but if he does have to rezone, you will be noticed.
Okay, and how will we be noticed? By mail, each person?
Within 200 feet of the property.
Because the rumor is that low-income housing is going in there.
Yeah, I have not heard any such rumor. to that effect.
A lot of us have heard that. And I spoke on that before at the last meeting to you folks, trying to explain to you that that is not the area for low-income housing.
Yeah.
Already, we have had 3 people who have sold their homes and left. 2 of them, my very good friends.
Yeah. Those are strictly rumors, like our city
So
manager has said, our city administrator. No one's approached us in any regard with that. So until they do, it's speculation and it's a rumor that somebody started just to get you all riled up, I believe.
Well, all of us are riled up, there's no doubt about that. That was accomplished.
Yeah. Well, again, let me just state that we're not annexing any property tonight. This is just going over a covenant to annex, and we don't have any plans to annex this property, even if the covenant stands. So
Okay.
I'm not going to say that it wouldn't happen a year or 5 years or 10 years. The city may decide to annex it, but just because there's a covenant there doesn't mean that it's going to get annexed.
Well, my concern was the other part of it in this low-income housing business being put
Well,
up there.
that's a
So
rumor.
we don't.
That's strictly a
There's
rumor.
no sense for me to go into my spiel here about that.
Correct.
No,
until
ma'am,
the
not at this time.
comes.
Okay, we're just
Right.
talking about this covenant for tonight and not about annexing.
Okay.
All right,
And
thank
we
you.
will be notified by mail, because that one notice that was in the paper was in there, kind of at the last
You'll be
minute.
notified by mail if he has to rezone his property to accomplish what he's doing.
And at this point, that property that we're talking about, how is that zoned exactly?
It has a mixed-use designation.
And what does that exactly mean for those of us that are impacted by that.
So it would allow him to construct both commercial, residential, property, could be single-family homes, it could actually be, even be multifamily homes.
Commercial meaning
property.
what, a restaurant, a gas station, what,
It,
a store?
Professional offices, restaurants and cafes without drive-ins, retail stores and accessory buildings to those things. That's the commercial component.
Okay, I wasn't sure. All right. Well,
but depending upon what, you know, if he's looking for greater density, he's probably gonna have to approach the city to rezone anyway. But
Okay.
We don't know yet, he hasn't approached the city yet.
and is the owner at this time, who is the owner at this time?
I don't recollect his name. I believe he's from Southeast Florida.
Around Hallandale?
A corporation.
Is
It
it
is a
that
corporation.
UK a saint or something of that nature? So it's
Sounds
the
correct.
same one that we heard about in the beginning.
That property the north part of the golf course is owned by HC Ucaint Corp.
Yeah, that's the same one.
And what is being discussed tonight is again the south portion of the golf course.
And it's my understanding that he has a reputation for doing some things that wouldn't be too pleasing to those of us in that area with our houses. It would not be conducive to happiness, let me
Yeah.
put it that way.
With all due respect, instead of listening to the rumors, you might want to do some personal investigation and find out. It's easy to start a rumor, especially in social media these days.
Well, I hope that that's all it is a
So,
rumor.
Well, at this time,
Because-
that's all we know.
Remember, you guys, you wouldn't want anything like this to happen in your neighborhoods, I'm sure. Any low-income housing. I'm sure you all have lovely houses, just as lovely as ours, probably lovelier, and you wouldn't want this to happen. And also, please remember, we elected you folks, most of you.
Yes, you did.
We elected you to look out for us and take care of us and represent us. So please keep that in mind
Good point.
when you're thinking about these things that are not conducive to many of us. Remember who put you on those chairs up there.
Well,
It was
we are,
us.
we are here at your service to serve you guys and certainly to represent you in
And to
every
see
way
our
we can.
point of view, hopefully.
But by the same token, you know, everybody has a right to property rights in this country too.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
if they bought it, or like Mr. Hodges, if he buys a piece of property, guess what? He can do within our regulations what he chooses to.
Oh, yes, and that's a fine idea. I'm
So-
all in favor of that. I'm just not in favor of the other situation.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, thank you very
remember,
much.
we put you guys up there. We don't want to take you out.
Where's that back door when we need it?
Thank you, Bonnie Smart.
Yes.
I'm Noreen Diston. I live right next to Bonnie in the
Okay.
city. I just want to retain our neighborhood the way it is now. We bought 4 years ago and just moved down here 2 years ago. We love Sebring. And can I just have a show of hands? How many people here want this man to buy this property? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And I know there's people that can't make it because these
Yeah.
meetings are way too early for working families. We need to move them later. I'm gonna propose that to you guys. It is really too early. But I thank each and every one of you for allowing Derek and his wife to be here. And we would love to see a family park. I would love to have Friends of Harder Hall, like a foundation, to take care of this place and the residents around it. Just help. I'm the 4th house on Medina Way, and I know Sebring police have a lot to do, but if I had children, I wouldn't let them in the front yard because people speed up and down there, and we're the 4th house. Nobody goes 25 miles an hour like the sign says.
Yeah.
You can't walk your dog. You couldn't take a walk with your kids. There's no sidewalks. It would be a disaster. Roadways would have to be reconfigured, especially with the drive, the way it is. That would have to be all constructed differently. So just one other thing to consider. But I plead with you, please, councilman, please help us. We just want to maintain our little piece of Sebring heaven. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Other comments from council members? Mr. Detman? Mr. Bishop? Mr. Carlisle?
I agree, we're here, we were elected by the people of Sebring, the city limits of Sebring. And our responsibility is to see Sebring grow. And if we don't hang on to some of the things we got, we're not doing our job. We're not annexing. That's the whole thing, we're not annexing. So, I think it's a great idea, but I don't think we should throw away the covenant. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Stewart?
Well, I've already said my opinion. I think we should release this declaration of covenant for this property.
Okay.
I'll make a motion for that, actually.
Okay. I just have one question.
Oh, I'm
about-
sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I have one question about your motion, and that would be based on the sale of the property, or just release it?
I think that's kind of moot, isn't it? I mean, if he's gonna, yeah,
Sure.
based on the sale, if that's appropriate.
Okay.
Based on the sale to release.
Yes.
Declaration of covenant based on the sale to Mr. Hodges.
Correct.
Okay. Have a motion on the floor?
I'll second that.
Can I get back up?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further comments from the public? Mr. Hodges, I see you want to comment.
I just
Come
want
on up.
it's very important that if that is the vote, I mean, it'd be better and easier just to release it, but if it's gonna be that, it needs to be me or any entity assigned by me or my
Right.
wife.
So however you're buying it is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want it, I mean, if you're gonna do,
Yeah.
that's gotta be very
Sure.
airtight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
How do I-
Would you like to
how would I-
amend that motion then?
Sure.
Okay.
Tell her she needs to
But how would I
document the
word that
motion.
specifically?
Uh,
I put to the sale to Mr. Hodges, but how would I?
Right, or
alter this
any
law?
entity wholly owned by the Hodges.
Okay. Or any entity owned by Hodges, is what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I just
Does that
want,
work for you, Ms. Hodges?
Or they're assigned.
Good thing you sat near the front.
I've lost 20 pounds in the last 4 months. I was 295. My goal is 250. I made a bet with one of my employees for $1,000 by December 23rd. So, wish me luck. This is helping, I think. Or any not-for-profit, any entity, commercial or not-for-profit.
Right, entity.
Yeah, I just want to make sure because I'm seeking a lot of legal advice on exactly how to make sure. I'm not interested in making money on a nature path. I want to make it not for profit, I think. But my wife and I are discussing all of this.
okay, any other comments?
Do I have it? Or do I need to read it
You can
again?
you can add or not-for-profit corporation
To anybody.
It ain't to anybody, it's just to him.
created by Hodges. I think he's talking about a homeowners association or something to that effect.
Okay, release a declaration of covenant based on the sale to Mr. Hodges or any entity owned by the Hodges or a non-profit entity
Created by.
created by the Hodges.
Okay. Before I ask Kathy to, Mrs. Haley to call for a vote, I just want to bring up the other issue that Mr. Hodges brought up, and that's that little triangle that's in the city. And I think that we may have a little difference of opinion on that than on this particular thing. I don't know if that's a deal breaker for you or not, but I just want to also have council weigh in a little bit on taking a piece of the city property out of the city and let you know going in before we just take a vote on the one
Would
issue.
you like me to come back up?
Well, I'd like to see what council thinks on that particular item.
Well, I'm not sure I even understand why that would be integral to the sale of that property.
Come back up if you would, please, sir.
Do you have a way to project something on the screen?
No, I think if you just explain why you think it's that important, we can work with that.
It's important because this city, oh,
Can zoom in.
okay, can you zoom in?
That's
Take that little
you can
triangle
select the
off.
map.
On the maintenance shed, top in the middle there, you keep zooming
In
in.
the middle of the curve of Gulf
Up
Street,
here?
right?
Right?
Yeah, this maintenance shed, half of that building, which is a cement block building,
Right.
is in this $50 value piece of city. I don't want any, it is a deal breaker. I need that, and I'm suggesting, because my wife and I are going to Kentucky, we're going to be on the Bourbon Trail. I'm suggesting on October 5th, I would hope whatever you need to do, and obviously I'll be available, is we can just make it so we can buy a place in the county without any of that's the rest of our due diligence. And I only found this out yesterday when I zoomed in and zoomed in. It doesn't even show up on there. This is literally about a third of a lot, which is pine trees. I actually have copies here.
Oh, really?
If you want to pass that around, that's the
So
copy.
he would,
That's the
so
piece
that's
of
not
land.
included.
Thank you, I've done the graphic
So,
for
but
you.
this is a street, so it borders the street.
Borders the street and borders the property that he's talking about buying.
Yeah, and half that
And it has
building.
half of that building
Yeah.
in it. This is city, county, that, this little portion here.
Oh, Jason, yeah.
Well, I'd like to clarify, that was just a piece we surveyed because the road access into the maintenance building needed to be moved into that parcel, so they'd have access to the maintenance building. That was it.
Yeah. Okay, just so that you're aware that this is not under discussion, this is just the covenant that we're talking about now, the release of the covenant, but I just wanted to let you know that it's a separate issue about the triangle. You understand?
I certainly understand, and I want you to look from my point of view. This is something that my wife and I are not taking on easily. It's going to be a big deal for us.
Yes.
We can't have anything, and we want to have this wrapped up, and I think we've got time. We've got 2 weeks, and it's a little tiny piece of land, and I'm going to have a building in the city. It is a deal breaker for me. So right now I have a contract, which is a closing on October 5th. I would like to close on October 5th, and I'm asking for your council members' help, whatever it takes. And I've made that clear. I've spoken to Scott a few times. I made it clear since day one. I've been trying to get the survey for the last 3 weeks. I got it yesterday. I'm just trying to make everybody happy, and that includes my wife and I, to take a piece of property on, invest our heart and soul into our neighborhood, and I need your help. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from council members on the motion that's before us? Okay, Kathy, would you call for a vote on the motion, which is the request for the release of a declaration of the covenant for the property located at 3297 Gulfview Road?
You get a second?
And
Yeah, we
exactly
can
the
second.
wording that Mark said.
Chief?
Do you want the full motion, or do y'all know what it is?
Yeah, well, I know, we know
Can you
what
read
it
it?
is.
Okay.
Can you read it,
you've already
please?
read it.
Please.
Okay. So this is only on the declaration of covenant and nothing to do with the triangle piece, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Bishop,
Thought you were gonna read it.
Yeah.
They want
Read
to just
what?
read it.
read the motion again?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Yes, you-
apologize.
Yeah.
I thought y'all wanted me to read it.
Okay.
The motion is release the declaration of covenant based on the sale to Mr. Hodges or any entity owned by the Hodges or a non-profit entity owned by the Hodges. Created, not owned, created. Okay.
Created.
Sorry. Created,
Okay. Mr. Bishop?
no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Carlisle,
No.
Detman,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes. Okay, motion has passed to release the covenant.
Okay, so what are we gonna do about that triangle?
I still don't understand what the significance of the triangle is. He hadn't answered that question yet to
Yeah.
me.
Well,
I don't understand
Well, there's a
it.
building cut in half, that's the
Is
really weird
that what it's
part.
all about, the
Yeah.
building cut in half?
Yeah, so can we maybe have staff look into that and work out something for the next meeting? Would that be appropriate?
I know there's a process for de-annexation, and certainly with your, if that's how council instructs, we can move forward with it. I'm not sure it'll happen by October the 5th or not, but I don't believe we can simply declare it so.
I just wanted to comment, if I could, that we'll pull that triangle right out of it again and put it back with the piece it came, if that's what's necessary, so we can.
Well, but the building is in both the city and the county, which is a little bit of a problem.
That's,
So,
yeah, that's why we had pulled it out. Right. Right.
Can I just buy that from you for $50 now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
oh, you may pull it out with
Yeah.
from your agreement with him.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay.
So if, we can.
That's
We were
wise.
just
that
discussing
would
that,
be-
so it
So-
doesn't have to come up.
So you
Yeah.
guys work it out.
Yes, sir.
Have a
Mhm.
nice day.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're through with that. If, I'm gonna give anybody that would like to leave at this time, a chance to do that before we move on to the next item, so it's not disruptive. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question about that motion while people are going out?
Yeah,
Do
sure.
you mind?
Go ahead.
Can I make an official request to have a couple pieces of property de-annexed at the same time? Should I send you the addresses and the strap number? or-
See you later.
There'll probably be 100 people behind him.
Probably.
Probably unique enough that there would be very few. Except luck, luck just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Okay, we're gonna move on to 10B now. This is a request notice of disposal of property located in community redevelopment area by the city of Sebring. And the background, at the July 6th meeting, 2021, council meeting, council directed staff to issue a solicitation for the disposal of property, specifically the Weigel House, 1989 Lakeview Drive, and Cloverly House, 1971 Lakeview Drive. The attached notice of disposal of property was published on August 6th, 2021, which directed any interested party to respond by September 7th, 2021 at 3 p.m. The purchasing department received 2 responses from the following. So response number 1 was a Sebring Historical Society, and response number 2 was Jeff and Lily Stanley, Sebring Adventure Center. So, okay. I guess we can start this off with the one or the other of them, and we have the notice out there. Would you like to add something to that?
Lisa Osha, purchasing
Yes.
agent. You basically said what I was going to say, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm
Whatever
sorry, I
you'd like
didn't
to
mean to
do
take
now.
your glory away. Okay, Mr. Swain, anything you want to add before we start into the 2 presentations?
No, sir.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's start with number 1, the Sebring Historical Society. Would you like to come up and say anything about your presentation, about your request?
Bobby Lee, president of the Sebring Historical Society. Kind of wish I'd had notice. This is the first we've heard that this was going to be heard tonight.
Oh, well, it's on the agenda.
You had no idea that this was on the agenda?
Nope.
Okay.
find that appalling, actually.
Not as much as I do.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this in regards to that you were allotted us, quite a bit of time at our last council meeting to go over proposals you had, and not this one specifically, I understand that.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with this.
But, well, about some of your plans down at the waterfront, I'm gonna say. But nonetheless, we do have that, your proposal in front of us, and I'm sure all of us have read it.
We had basically 4 proposals.
Yes.
Right.
The first
They're
one
all
is.
contained in here.
Right. Is there any reason for me to go through those with you?
You can shortly if you want, for the public particularly, if they haven't.
So the public will know we've asked that you either gift us the property, which is a common occurrence nowadays with the CRA activities. Number 2, if you don't want to give it to us, we'll buy it. The purchase we offered was a classic legal definition that you see on deeds, which is $10 and other valuable consideration. Of course, all of that's subject to consideration by the city council. The last one was we would lease the property at the same conditions that we have under lease now, and for a period not to exceed 30 years. That could be 1 week or it could be 30 years. The last one was, if you don't like any of what we've asked, then we're ready, willing, and able to sit down and negotiate something that makes sense for us and for the city. That's it.
Okay. Any questions from council members? Any questions from the public in regards to this proposal? Yes, come on up. For the record, state who you are and tell us what you have to say.
I'm Terry Mendel, and of course I love the Sebring Historical Society in Sebring, Florida. And really when you look at it practically, these are 2 little bitty houses sitting right down on the road. And the parking area is really, a lot of that's gonna have to be preserved. So really, it seems like it would be just a practical thing to not, I know that this isn't being brought up right now, but to not try to move the little houses. They're just 2 little historic houses sitting there. And they mean so much to us and so many people in our city. And we just ask that you would let us continue to have these houses. I'm sorry, cry. We have done so much work in there, and they're just beautiful. And we're hoping all of you will come and take a tour. And they're very important to our history, and we're losing so much of our history in our country. I'm so embarrassed. Anyway, please let us keep these little houses for our historical society.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'm Georgia Ashelman. I'm one of the founding members of the Friends of the Kenilworth Lodge. I'm not speaking on that behalf. I'm speaking on behalf of the Weigel House and the Cloverly House. The Weigel House, the first time I walked into it after the lease began, it was in very, very dire shape. And those of you who've been there recently find that it's in a much better shape, because it's a lot of effort and a lot of work have gone into it. I have the joy of being the person on duty on Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. I give anybody a tour who wants one, and if nobody comes to tour, I enjoy the baby grand piano that sits in the living room, and I sing and I play. We lost Nansasawee. We're definitely in danger of losing Santa Rosa, Kenilworth, God only knows what. These are 2 little historic houses that should have been preserved and put on preservation lists long before it was just a 1-year, we'll get you out of there as soon as possible kind of thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other comments on this proposal? Okay, then I'd like to ask the Sebring Adventure Center for their proposal and explanations to what they're thinking about doing.
My name is Jeff Stanley. My wife Lily Stanley, we're both partners in the Sebring Adventure Center, if you choose to allow us to bring it to Sebring. I'd like to thank the board for this opportunity to consider us to partner with the town of Sebring. We'd like to save the two beautiful historical homes, repurpose them, bring them back to their former glory, make them a centerpiece of the revitalization project that we hope to see come to be. We're glad to work with the city on any of the property lines that they would suggest, and we're open to any suggestions and modifications to our program. Our offer is a cash offer with continued long-term investment in the community and the town. We hope to offer 16 to 18 new jobs with many more to come. We plan to establish a strong ecotourism market to the community, bringing in more ecotourism throughout Central Florida, making this region known for ecotourism in Central Florida. Matter of fact, to that point, I believe next month, your city is hosting an ecotourism educational seminar on what your city can do to bring ecotourism to the area. I have to say, I'm an expert in that area. I want to thank you very much for hearing me today. I did bring a lengthy proposal to you. There is a short 30-second or minute and a half, 2-minute video that you're welcome to play that I think will open your eyes and show you a little bit more what our plans are, as well as some drawings of 3D what we hope to do. And I'm open for any questions that the board or anybody may have of me or my wife, Lily.
Or Scott, are we prepared to show that video?
I'm not, but I can get to where I need to be. Is it a website?
No, it was one of the video chips that was included in the proposal.
No, I don't have that. All right.
No.
I don't have that.
Did you bring it?
I have it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank gosh. We put together a short video with presentation, and then we put an ending video together with some renditions of what we were hoping to see and do. Also, in our proposal, Lily and I, the intro. Lily and I included, we've just recently retired from Boone, North Carolina, being in the outdoor adventure business. I founded Wahoo's Adventures, which was, we're recognized 2-time National Outfitter of the Year, which is unprecedented. No other outfitter nationwide ever received that designation. We know what we're doing. I've spoke to some people in the area, and they say that outfitting coming to the area would soon die thereafter. And I have to share with you, I faced that 45 years ago when I started my business in Boone, North Carolina. They told me I was crazy to think people would float down the rivers and ride in the back of a pickup truck in a 4-wheel drive. And frankly, we grew to become one of the top outfitters in the world. And you can read about that with the TripAdvisor. I don't want to take any more of your time, but I think the video will answer any questions if we're ready.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for that, does anybody have any questions or comments? Mr. Carlisle? Mr. Stewart?
Well, I'm curious, your plan shows you using both the houses.
Yes, sir.
And your intention is to retain the historic ambience of the houses and not mess with that, right? You also said you're going to put a commercial kitchen in.
Right, sir.
Okay. What about the parking lot in the front? Is that part of your proposal or not?
Well, we hope to keep the parking lot in the front just so people can park, come in.
Yeah.
We hope to operate one of the buildings as a welcome center. You know, we hope to be kind of like a concierge to the entire area. If anybody's interested in anything that has to do with outdoor adventure whatsoever, we hope to be the one that's going to lead them to it.
Okay, you gave us a list of a variety of things that you intended to buy, one being a water park. What
Yes,
is that-
sir.
What exactly is that? It's a floating water park?
Absolutely, and you'll see
is
it
it
in
on
the
there?
video that we're going to be showing to you. It's called a Tarzan float, and what we hope to do is park it off of the swimming area, and have lifeguards on it. You know, one of the things that we're all about is security and safety, so we would have a lifeguard on it, and what we would do would be probably either 1-hour seminars or 45-minute seminars where people can come out, enjoy the water park for a 45-minute period of time or an hour period of time for a small fee. And then what we do is part of the experience is we're going to take them out on a jet ski, so they're not going to have to swim out from the swimming area and then swim from the swimming area to the park. So we would take them out in a jet ski that's going to be with a certified lifeguard that's going to have them in inner tubes,
Right.
dragging them behind to the water park itself, which is then going to have another lifeguard on it, or that lifeguard will be stationed there while that group is there for an hour period. Now, that's just one of the many offerings that we hope to bring
You just
to the
scared all
town.
the old people here. All of them are scared now.
Well,
So-
you know, and I appreciate
Well, I just wanna
what you're
mention,
saying there.
But you are getting pontoon boats as well.
Well, and that being said, you know, what we're all about is soft adventure.
Yeah.
We hope to do pontoon boat rentals. We hope to do dinner cruises on the lake. We hope to grow that dinner cruise to possibly, you saw in my thing, our long-term goal would possibly be a paddle wheeler on the lake with a piano bar on the downstairs. Whether or not that comes to be is going to be, you know, whether we have the interest. We're going to make every effort to try to develop it. We're also going to be available for private parties, where if you want to come and have an anniversary party, you, your wife, and 7 other adults or 10 other people, and you want to go out and float out in the middle of the lake, have a catered meal with drinks and frozen beverages, we're going to provide it for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Scott, I'll get to you guys as soon as after the video.
Sebring Adventure Center seeks to give new life to the 2 historic homes at the waterfront by creating a unique space that will complement and engage with Lake Jackson. Our plan includes a variety of on-the-water activities such as jet skis, water skiing, pontoon boats, kayaking, canoeing, tubing, and stand-up paddleboarding. If you just want to sit back and relax, there will be cabanas to watch all the fun. The on-water activities will be paired with the appropriate food and beverages, giving our guests the amenities available to spend the entire day. By incorporating decking and sail shades between the buildings, we will be able to create a one-of-a-kind seating area and event space to host our daily guests, as well as corporate and social events. Lake Jackson is well known for its $1 million sunset views, and Sebring Adventure Center seeks to take the view to the next level by offering sunset pontoon cruises, catered dinners, and an after-hours speakeasy. Our mission is to deliver high-quality, affordable family entertainment to the people of Highlands County, and to generate, introduce, and welcome new ecotourism visitors to our beautiful area.
Very good, very informative. Appreciate that.
I appreciate this opportunity. It's a big life swing for my wife and myself. We thought when we were coming here, this time to fully retire, and life has led us in a different direction to maybe bring something new to Sebring and share our love with the town. It's something that we felt like, since I became a resident over 20 years ago, that I felt like is very much needed here in the community. And I would like to very much be part of the revitalization project if it's something that you gentlemen wish to continue and carry on. And we would love to be a partner with you as well as the CRA.
Mr. Detman, comments or thoughts?
Just out of curiosity, have you had conversation to see how your proposal dovetails with the CRA plans?
I have had some discussions with Christie and the gang over there, and they seemed very excited about what we were proposing. I'd like to think that they think that it might be the future of Sebring.
I mean,
Thank you.
And naturally, I ask that because they have a plan that they've been working with a planner, and Mr. Lee has also done something, and I just wonder how all of those, if any of them, together with you, would complement each other. How it would work out.
Well, you brought up an excellent point there, and that being, we're all about history, and ecotourism also includes the history of what our area is all about. And, we don't want to lose that history. We want that to be part of what our tours are going to be about. We want to be very much involved in the history. I don't know if there's some way that they can be involved in the development of what we're going to be doing there and stuff like that. I don't know what their feel is and stuff, but our goal is to protect those buildings forever. But we plan to repurpose them and hopefully bring in a whole lot more tourism traffic and hopefully revitalize the area. Not only bringing in young people, but bringing in folks like yourselves who, when your grandkids come to the area, where are you going? You're going to the coast. You're going over to Disney. If you had something like this in your backyard, you're going to stay right here. You're going to grill out over there at the park, and you're going to go home at night and sleep in your own warm bed. And that's what we want to do, is we want to keep the residents here in town with valuable entertainment, something that's enriching, something that when they come to work on Monday, they can say to their neighbor, "We didn't see you in the cabana next to us. You guys need to rent that cabana next week," because we expect to have regular people. We're going to have cabana service. We want to make this a 5-star type of experience coming to Lake Jackson.
I hate to put anyone from the CRA on the spot, but I see you kind of inching up this way anyhow, and I'd like to see how that might dovetail into your current plan.
Chief, that was a great question, and thank you, Christy Vasquez, CRA Executive Director, for the record. We have had extensive conversations with Mr. Stanley to see how what they are proposing fits in with what we are trying to propose. And our designer for the project, Kimley Horn, is aware of this decision being made tonight and how that will factor into our final design. We did have a provision for an outfitter in one of the last design concepts, so that was definitely something that we were hoping to be included, was the ecotourism that he's talking about. We also talked about a restaurant as well, but that was also in one of the concepts that could have been at the pier if we were to redevelop that. Some of the conversations around that was obviously who do you get to do it and who's going to invest the capital in it, and then how is that structured. So Mr. Stanley has actually kind of taken some of the difficulty out of that portion of it, because we're talking about repurposing both of the historical homes and utilizing them in a fashion that we were already trying to plan for in a different capacity within the design. This simplifies things a little bit for us, and it keeps everything. We had some concerns as far as the outfitters being near the swimming area or how that was going to work with the new pier and 2 different concepts. So Kimley Horn does have the ability to keep the houses and to be able to repurpose them in this fashion that Mr. Stanley is talking about, and then it frees up some of the design and cleans it up actually a little bit better, because then we have things that are going to be centrally located. The parking obviously would then stay along with that. So it does check off all the boxes for us, and that is something that he talked to us about prior to coming before you tonight.
So the CRA actually had come to a point where they were willing to leave the 2 houses.
Sure.
and incorporate them, if you will, in part of the waterfront.
Yes, sir.
overall
We've had,
plan.
I mean, I won't speak on behalf of David or my board,
Right.
but we have had conversations with Kimley Horn that if it was the pleasure of this council that those houses were to stay, that this would obviously be the highest and best use that could go along with them, considering what we're trying to do in the area. And that if we also had an operator who was going to be coming in, then that was the perfect merriment for us, because if we were going to be bringing in an outfitter prior to Mr. Stanley coming forward with this proposal, who would that be? And who has the expertise to be able to do that? So obviously with his presentation and his proposal, he's shown that he has the ability to do that. So it actually was kind of the stars aligning for us that we actually had somebody who was willing to come out of retirement and invest a significant amount of money in that. So that takes that off of our plate from the CRA to where we're able to put our dollars into other aspects of this design. And then also hopefully from the city perspective too, especially if he's keeping the liability on his side of it, that takes that off of us.
I see.
Okay?
Thank you.
So,
Yes, sir.
Christie.
Yes, sir.
I looked him up. I'm sure, did you guys vet him as well?
Yes, sir, we did.
Okay, like, really vet him?
I mean, I won't say that it was really vetted.
No
And not
offense,
to,
but,
not
you
well,
know.
and I don't know what those standards are, but I've done my research on him, and everything that he has said has been true.
Okay.
Did you check my references, sir?
I haven't. I just Googled you. And,
Okay.
and everything that I saw was very positive.
Okay.
But I feel like this is, you know,
My references-
we're on the line here, so we want to make sure that.
My references are on the state level, North Carolina state level.
Yes, sir.
As well as state representatives from the state of North Carolina, as well as the director of tourism from the state of North Carolina.
Very good, thank you.
I'll make you guys proud.
Okay.
Also, the proof of funds was kind of a big deal for us
I
too.
saw the proof of funds. I saw that reality.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
How are you gonna work the,
Yep.
if he buys the two houses, what about, there's land between the houses and the lake?
I mean, if you want my personal opinion on it, if Mr. Stanley is offering to give money for that, I think it would be great to put that towards whatever additional funds are required as a part of the grant that the Art League has for the back building for the Visual Arts Center. I would think the best thing would be for that property, that building not to be there anymore, and for him to be able to have access to the beach, potentially build all of the amenities that he's speaking of. That would be the best. And then that's a clear delineation between the side that the CRA is working on, and then he has his side that he's working on that becomes his property.
I didn't notice in the write-up that he indicated that he wanted the beach per se, he wanted to use the beach. That's a big difference.
Well, and that's completely up to you guys to determine.
As far as that's concerned.
That's what I was asking.
That's the
How
value.
much property goes, when we're selling houses, what property goes?
I think he asked
It's up to
for,
you.
He's willing to take the houses without the waterfront.
without the waterfront. He did ask for the area with the fountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'd like to be able to put, yes, thank you, Christie. Yeah, I didn't want to limit the town, and I didn't want to also overextend myself as far as liability, because we all have to be concerned about liability. We do plan on running security at our facility as well. So I think that's very important, because we need to turn that neighborhood around. But you know, I do believe that we're going to be able to just maintain it. I'm looking at the possibility of that property that's directly behind the buildings to the end of the sidewalk just before the Art League house, going straight over to where the that little garage building is behind there, maybe 10 yards behind the garage building, just to make a rectangle. Now, by me being able to utilize having the area where the fountain is going to be allow me, if I have large groups that want to come in and do a wedding venue or something like that, that we would be able to set up wedding tents and large things like that. The other thing is, something that I didn't mention is we do hope to bring in some small festivals and things like that as well.
I have a question for you in that regard, if I could. You've got where you would like to purchase that property, but I'm not sure that we want to necessarily sell it. Would you be interested in leasing it and still working with the CRA in this regard as an outfitter, or do you have to own the property?
I really do want to own the property in order to come out of retirement and feel like I have something to run the future, and frankly not have somebody overshadowing me, telling me I can and I cannot do this.
Well, and the reason I say that, I mean, it's a prime piece of property for the city. I think if we were to actually turn over the deed to that property, it would, I'm not sure it would be in the best interest of the citizens. I love your proposal. I hope that in one capacity or another we can do this. I truly do. I think CRA will work with you. I think the city will too. But I just wanted to ask you that question. Is it do we have to sell you the property? Can we give you a 20-year lease or a 25-year lease on that property? And I'm sure the Historical Society with those houses, I mean, this would kind of solve that problem too. They don't want those houses to be torn down. But as soon as you buy them, then we don't have any control over whether you tear them down or not.
Well,
I
my
know
goal
your
would be,
intention-
especially if I don't control down to the water, I'm proving that, if I own them down to the water, then, we could probably make them private residents at one time, but I mean, quite frankly, if I'm making it a commercial residence or a commercial operation, going to be putting that kind of money in it to develop it and stuff, what else could it be used for other than what I'm developing it for?
Well, $50,000, it could be used for a lot. But let me just go ahead and ask our other council members here. Mr. Bishop, do you have any questions? Anything further?
A lot.
Okay.
I just don't know where to start.
Thank you for that.
I mean, as the newest member on the council, I'm still trying to catch up, but this is one that I've been following pretty closely since well before I even put in to be appointed. But when I was appointed, I reached out to the Historical Society myself and did take a tour of both houses. Actually, I even met with the Gloria Peters from the Art League, and she gave me a tour as well. And I mean, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but nobody is wanting to abolish the Historical Society. I mean, it's just, that's not what we're after. However, as the young person up here, and the only one with a child under the age of 5, I hope. I do like progress. I do. But I've seen this happen before in this town, and not by anyone with your resume, but it undoubtedly doesn't work. I don't know. It's hard to have much more of an opinion when we don't have a final plan.
Right.
Is it appropriate for someone to ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. Question.
You have to go up here.
Yes, come on up and
Georgia.
ask. And I was going to get to the public, by the way. Yes,
Well, I'm public plus, and you know that.
Okay.
Because in this case, how many other properties around Lake Jackson, which is a very large lake, did this gentleman consider? If he's looking to buy buildings, I bet he could find some that were for sale. And if he's going to try to do all the things he's promising he will do to you, for you, on Lake Jackson, he better talk to the property owners who have access to the lake. And he better take a look at a lot of other things that may not have been part of what happened in North Carolina. My husband and I moved here in 2012 from Ohio, and we are full-time until my husband went to heaven on February. And in this case, those buildings, when you ask the question about what he would do with the buildings, how he would affect the buildings, the answer you got, well, I don't know what for sure I'm going to do. Well, I really appreciate the fact that you said you're not interested in selling him the buildings. Because the Historical Society, one of the 4 proposals you have before you, deals with buying the buildings. Trust us. Or if you lease it to us for years, we're not going to turn it in to something you'll never recognize.
Okay, thank you.
My question wasn't answered yet.
Yes.
How much property will go with these houses?
I think he said to the back of the fountain.
Yeah, he did.
That's
He-
too
he-
much
he
for
laid it out.
$50,000. That's
Yeah.
not. That's
Yeah.
that'd be a. I'll give you 50,000.
I would double that, but I'm not gonna start the water park.
Well, if you read
Well,
the paperwork, the idea was to purchase the property and invest another $450,000.
Right.
So he's developing a business and putting these buildings to use where they're functioning and making a profit in order to maintain the buildings. So,
Well, if the city feels like they wanted to maintain that piece of property back there and still allow me access to use that piece of property, that's perfectly all right. I imagine the city's gonna allow me access to the beachfront, because what we hope to have is cabanas that are gonna be rentable, that we're gonna be able to move out, and we'll have cabana wait staff that'll come out to the cabanas and stuff like that. So we just want to be able to utilize it. We don't want to own it. We don't have to own that part, but we do want to have a permanent presence in the community. And frankly, the thing that excites me is I do want to address another point. I do have a plan that was put down, a 3D plan of everything that we hope to do as far as what changes were going to be done to the two buildings, which included the decking between the two, and we were going to take out one wall in one of the buildings to extend to make a commercial kitchen that would basically cover the access to the basement, which we don't think is important to get into from the inside of the building. You can access the basement from the backside with those big storm doors that they have around the back. But other than that, we were hoping to maintain a lot of the that plan.
Okay. Thank you. All right, well, thank you very much. I'm gonna just bring up the fact again that we have a meeting between the CRA and the City Council on November 4th, and we're gonna have a joint meeting that we're gonna go over the latest development from the Kimberly Horn and the 100,000 plus plan, if you will, that they're gonna come up with. So we're probably not making a decision here tonight. I would like to encourage you to get with the CRA and maybe even the Historical Society. I think that maybe they'll be excited that you might want to save those houses, but then again, we may have to find a new home for them, maybe someplace down on the circle where they would get more exposure. And I know that according to their plan here, they say they're getting 60 people a month. That's only 2 people a day. So I think we can better utilize that and get more people into the Historical Society if we give them a better presence, maybe on the circle somewhere. Maybe the old Salvation Army building or something like that. But nonetheless, and I think their primary concern, I could be wrong, but I think their primary concern is saving the houses and not just having a home for themselves.
Right.
But that being said, I'm going to ask for other public comments here. I see we've got a few people that would like to talk about this a little bit.
While they're coming up,
Yes.
following on your point,
Yes.
we're going through this process because the statute says we have to, but the statute allows for negotiation. The statute, allows for you to consider the proposals and then work, going forward. You need not make a decision between A or B tonight and be concerned about some of the details that we could work out going forward if that's what you want to do. Thank you.
great.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Carlson again for the record. One question and then a comment. The question is that the proposal to buy the 2 buildings, but then it sounded like almost an exclusive use of the beach area on that side of the, right behind those properties down there, so that he can store all the equipment and things down there. So then that would be fenced off or something. Is that, I haven't seen the whole proposal,
I
but
didn't
that's
see
kind of what
that.
if we have floating cabanas and jet skis and all these other things, then that lakefront property seems like it would be utilized pretty much. That seems like a pretty good buy for $50,000. But then, as a lifelong resident of the city of Sebring, I am 100% against, and I think 10 years from now, we would really regret selling any of the property around that, and probably wished that we would have bought more and done more to expand that so we could have great ideas like this. And I think Chairman Lawrence had a great suggestion that the CRA working with the Historical Society and this particular business proposal, I think could come up with a pretty good fit and find a way that everyone could incorporate in this somehow so that the whole community benefits. But certainly selling the property, I think most people would be completely against that. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Liddell, Sebring CRA Chair. The Kimberly Horn is looking for a little bit of direction as far as which way the council would be leaning, so that they know it's, the properties are staying there, number one. Number two, what would be the intended kind of projected use. One of the proposals, as Christy mentioned, did include from Kimberly Horn a outfitter, and I believe that Mr. Lee's one of his proposals included an outfitter as well. So the location of that is in different places on some of these things. Would the intention be to try to work out the deal and that be the primary use? Kimberly Horn's holding back coming forward because they're hoping to bring as close to a final rendition as possible. So, and if we're not doing that, then yes, there are additional costs associated with that. So
you're looking for some direction from us, aren't you?
we are not to kick the can, preferably.
David?
Yes, sir.
If I understood correctly from Christie, that both of the houses would be still included in the plan. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that is a plan. There was another plan that just included the Cloverly house and another one with both of them.
I
Gone.
believe that Mr. Stanley was including both of them. And
Oh, he was, yes, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I meant on their original plan.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah, on the original plan that was presented to us at the joint meeting before, one of the plans was both houses were gone.
Right.
And another plan was the Cloverly house was left,
Right.
and the little yellow house was gone.
But in tonight's meeting, both houses would remain, both proposers are proposing to keep both houses. We just need to know what the use would be.
So they're okay with the two houses staying then, is what he's saying.
Well,
It's
it
kind of hard for
depends.
us to say that because we haven't figured out what to do.
Well,
let me ask, let's get it out here and let's talk about it, but let me ask the council members, what is your
Well,
feeling on
I
that?
love the idea of taking both these houses and repurposing them and keeping them.
Yes.
I mean, I love that idea. If we can do that in some form or fashion, that's what I want to do. Now, the Cloverly house, am I saying it right? Cloverly house, doesn't stand out in my mind as a historical gem. Sorry.
Because of the paint color.
Well, maybe, but and also the way that it's built, et cetera. It's not really that in my perspective. But I could certainly see keeping the Weigel House most definitely, and if we could repurpose them and use them, if somebody could make a business and operate out of them where it's functional and it provides the income to keep the houses up, I'd be thrilled.
Sure.
Mr. Carlisle?
I'm just not crazy about selling city property.
I agree.
But that's not
with
what he's
you.
asking you, though. He's asking you, what
What
about?
about the houses, though?
That's, I know,
Yeah.
I think the houses should stay, but I don't really like the idea of selling property under.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna ask that question in just a minute. Mr. Detman?
Well, let me say this,
Wait,
that,
yeah.
did you want to go ahead, Ms. Mendel?
No, I just didn't want it to get over with and I didn't get to.
Yeah, no,
No, I don't
I'll
think
give you a
that'll
chance,
happen.
but let me go
I
with the
think we're good.
council first here, okay, please? Okay, Mr. Detman?
I hate to assume anything, but I'm going to at this point, just at the risk of maybe being wrong. When the Historical Society leased the house to move the museum from behind the library to the yellow house, they knew there was only a one-year lease and the possibility of maybe renewing that lease depending on the progress of the development of the park. I'm assuming that they didn't think that there shouldn't be a secondary plan just in case. This is the just in case tonight. So the just in case might be, once again, to get back with the CRA, they have several buildings, including the old Salvation Army, which is historical in and of itself. It's just a thought. so that if for some reason we go one direction, which wouldn't be in your favor, that you would have that plan to fall back on and say to yourselves, you know what, I think we can make this work somewhere else. I know you'd have to move again, and I know that's not where you want to be. But I once again, I take that assumption that you probably had plan B just in case this happened, because somebody could have, a third party or a fourth or a fifth could have come through with the city's proposal and offered $350,000 or $500,000. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? So just saying that, I just feel almost awkward tonight that Mr. Lee wasn't quite prepared to come up and make his proposal a little bit more, even though we read it. The folks out here have not. We know what it is, though. I mean, you want to stay where you're at, and I get that. I just hope you do have a secondary plan in case it doesn't go your way. There's 5 of us up here. You know, it could go 3, 2, 4, 1, or whatever. But and I really hope you do have another plan just in case. That's my thoughts on that.
Mr. Bishop?
Why, speaking to the Historical Society, why do you want to be in these particular homes, especially since we have someone willing to rehab them and keep them the way they are for the most part? I mean, and I'm just speaking for myself here. They're not on a register that I'm aware of. I mean, outside of the year they were built, I mean, what's the historical significance to keep the Historical Society there when we can get you possibly in a bigger space?
Jim Pollard, the director of the Sebring Historical Society. The Weigel House by far is the one that we really are particularly in saving, because Dr. Weigel was a early resident here in Sebring, and as you read the history, he was very active in the community. He was a well-known evangelist that traveled all over the United States. But when you look at the newspapers and things of that nature, you will find that he was always back here for Easter and Christmas, and he always took part in the community services that they had at that time. The Cavalli House, I'd have a hard time trying to make that into a really what you could call a historical home. It's historical from the standpoint that it had General Higgins, who was the first elected general of the Salvation Army. He came and lived there for approximately 10 years. And after they moved on to Canada, the Floyd Shoemaker family, which is a well-known family here in the Sebring area, they lived there and raised their children there until most of the kids had moved, and then they moved on down Lakeview and built, they said a smaller house, but I actually think it was bigger than the one they moved out of. If I had to choose between the two, I will always take the Weigel home, because I think it certainly could be, either one of these houses probably would qualify to be on some type of historical registry, probably the National Registry as a single standing property. The reason they aren't there is because the property owner must make that request, and there's never been a property owner that chose to do that. If we had the ability to do that, we certainly would have already done so. We would be willing to work with the city if they chose to do that and help them work through that. Does that answer your question, why they're not on there? You had...
No, I'm curious as to why you want to occupy just that particular space and maybe not another bigger space.
We have a Weigel House museum, and it would really be difficult to have a house museum in a commercial building. So if we didn't have that, then we would need to be looking for another home, not necessarily as historical as that one, and certainly not in that location, but we would need to move. We want a house museum. which you are the only councilman that's been to the house and took a tour at this point. We tell the story of Sebring and its founding fathers and its growth of the period, probably for the first 60 years of its existence. But we also have the ability in a house museum to show the way people lived in Sebring. This house, the Weigel House, was built in 1922. We chose to go to 1930 and sort of pick that era as where we wanted to develop that. There's some areas that we haven't done yet, simply because we didn't know whether we would be able to stay there. We haven't really finished the kitchen. We haven't worked on the pantry and a few smaller areas, but given the opportunity, one thing that a historical society as a nonprofit has the ability to do so, if we own the house and we don't have to own the land, we want to own the house, okay? We would have the ability then to go to the state and apply for state grants to do the things we needed to do to maintain and restore those homes back to the way they would have been built. And for instance, there was a dormer on the porch area of the Weigel House. It's no longer there. We would want to go back and restore that to its really original area. One of the reasons that we think it's important to stay down there, number one, it's close to our archives, so it's easier to keep up with what's going on. And secondly, because we feel that we do offer something to that area, whether it be the new revised waterfront project or whether it stays as a cultural center as it is now, or whatever it is. So we're just looking for a way to find our little niche and stay there and be able to represent the city and tell the history of our town. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Bishop?
No.
Could I ask a
Okay.
question related to Mr. Polly?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to clarify because I've seen it different ways through social media and in the media. The Historical Society's home is under the library where the archives exist. The museum we're talking about is what you all created a year ago when you entered into a lease with the city, right? So we're not talking about displacing the Historical Society as an entity. We're talking about a singular museum that they created a year ago. So I just want to make sure from a media perspective and from a social media perspective where it's rampant, that the city by no means is affecting the Historical Society's existence as an entity because their home is under the library that the county owns.
Right.
What we're talking about is a museum they created a year ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say that I think the waterfront area is one of the jewels of our city. I think down there at the waterfront could be a great area. I love some of the CRA's plans for it. I like some of the inputs that we've gotten from different citizens in regards to some of the things I like is the splash pad down there. I like possible going up to the dock on in a boat if you're on the other side of the lake and walking up to town and eating at one of the restaurants. I love some of the ideas that Mr. Stanley has come up with in regards to the activity. I think that would be great for, I'm going to say, our younger people. And when I say younger, I mean younger than me, which is everybody. But no, the 20 or the 30-year-old kids, I call them, but they don't have anything to do around here. And they're constantly saying, what is there to do? The teenagers, just the same thing. I think having, ability to go rent a paddleboard or a jet ski or a pontoon boat or sit at the waterfront and have dinner, I think those are great ideas. I would love to see us do something with that. With all due respect to the Historical Society, and I think history is extremely important. I really do. And I would love to see you guys have a better presence, and even a bigger presence, but maybe somewhere that people would see you guys more. 2 people a day coming in there is just not very many people accessing that lake area. It's not very many people down there coming in there. I would guess if you're on the circle, you would probably have at least 10 or 20 people a day just walking in. I could be wrong, but I think you would have a lot more people around the circle, especially with some of the things the CRA is doing there. We're going to have a lot more people there. And you put a couple little displays out in your window that attract people in. You get them to come in, see the museum and whatnot. People like museums, but they don't even know you're there because you're so far out of the way. But I think it's a jewel that we have down at the waterfront. Personally, I would like to maybe see the little yellow house move to a better location and still be able to have a park down there and have our cake and eat it too, so to speak. But to inhibit the development of the waterfront area and a possible park down there, I just don't think we need to inhibit that. I think we need to go forward with a plan that can incorporate some of this stuff together that we can, and you know, try to get some progress here. Something that people will use, something that will be more friendly to more people. And that goes across all the way from the little kids on the splash pad to older people that can sit around and watch them. So that's just kind of my opinion from my point of view. But I would also like to, again, remind you that we're going to go through this November 4th with the CRA. And I don't know if we helped you any with this, David, as far as whether those houses stay or go. But yes, okay. At any rate, but you know, at least we all got to tell you a little bit. I would certainly encourage you to ask each of us individually. But you know, personally, I would like to see it opened up a little bit more. So, yes, ma'am, come on up and tell us your opinion.
I'm not going to cry.
Okay.
You know, I'll try again. You know, I just think, I forgot the gentleman's name who came, and I think that's a great idea. You know, I appreciate you coming to our little wonderful town and having this kind of an idea. Of course, I don't think those homes are the place for you, but I do think we can compromise on all this. You know, I've seen some reports that like 50% of our population are older. And, you know, I've talked with several people my age, Lennar, different ones.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, we're young people trapped in an old body. You know, we're still young. We love Sebring. But there are a lot of us older ones. They are out of commission now because of COVID. They're not coming out. We have, you know, when we came before y'all a year or whatever it was ago, to get the lease on the house, I did not have any idea how important those houses were. And after I got in there and really learned the history and found out that Dr. Weigel is the man that wrote "No One Ever Cared for Me Like Jesus," that's a song I'd heard my whole life all over this country. I had no idea that was written in Sebring, Florida, in that little house. And when you go in the house, and I encourage you to please come and visit us, you are transported back into time. And while I really am excited about all the plans you have, that will not be our historic houses. And I think it would be better served to find another property. But I'm just saying, please come and visit. The museum, we have put in hours and hours and hours. Even though we've been slammed with the COVID, we are poised to pour investment money into these little houses. The Clavali House, and we've gone through a lot of ways to pronounce it, but I think that's it. Clavali House, we've already had an art show there. We've had all kind of amazing historic presentations. There's no reason we can't keep that one little area for all our historic folks that are very interested, and we can develop this. And I can guarantee that Mrs. Hanley would be for us keeping those houses in the Historic Society. So I can just guarantee
she's pulling
it.
the punches.
But anyway, you know, I wanted to say, to answer why we don't want to move to another area, it's because this is the historic district, and there's plenty of room for development with all these wonderful new ideas for down expanding the waterfront and the ecotourism and all that, however that would be accepted and expanded. But those little houses and our archives, we were busting out at the seams on the archives. We tried to get the Santa Rosa, which would have been great if we could have swung it, because that would have classed up that end of town and made that kind of open up. But as we've gotten in the two houses and fallen in love with the history, and when you walk in there, it's like going into great grandmom's house or your grandmother or whatever. Please come visit and you'll see what I mean. But were there any more questions about why we should stay there and why we're fighting so passionately? We're nice people. We're reasonable people. But we believe this is something so important for our historical district. And also the Art League should stay somewhere down there. And we have to accommodate the little theater with the parking.
Okay.
And,
I'm
okay.
gonna have to cut you off.
Anybody else have a question?
Okay, I think we've heard from the different aspects in regards to this. I did say I was going to ask one more question of the council members just to see how y'all feel, to maybe give the CRA and others, our outfitter particularly, and that is about selling the property versus leases or redevelopment or whatever. And generally I'm the last one to vote, and this isn't really a vote, but I'm going to be the first one to speak up and say, I don't really want to see the city sell the properties. So, but that being said, Mr. Carlisle, what's your thought?
I think he has a great idea, but I don't want to sell the property.
Mr. Stewart?
I don't think he's going to do it if we don't sell him the property.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I certainly understand your perspective about that. It's a tough one.
Well,
once it's sold, it's done. But I do think if we did sell it, and $50,000 is not enough, that we could condition the sale so he couldn't mess with the integrity of the historic properties that he's buying. We put some caveats on there, and also some caveats to confirm that his investment would be what he says he's investing, which is similar to what the CRA is doing with some of their properties. Just to because it's our responsibility to make sure that we're being responsible with what we own. So I'm really torn on that subject.
No decision's a decision, except after the moment.
Yeah, no decision.
Mr. Detman?
I would like to see Mr. Stanley accept the city, if we were to move in that direction, a 30-year lease. You will have the equity in the property, still good for your legacy, if you will. The city can retain the property itself. You and I will be over 100 years old come that time. So I don't know that that's much of our concern, other than the fact that you would have at minimum 30 years to promote your business, to be a part of the waterfront project. And I think the Historical Society would even like that as well, though they might have to move somewhere. At least they know that the land still belongs to the city, the houses still belong to the city, so that if somewhere down the line you want to break the lease, we want to break the lease. There's always things that happen, that they might want to be moved somewhere or whatever. As soon as we sell it, something happens to you tonight when you go to sleep, and tomorrow morning your wife is sitting there going, I'm not going to do this all by myself, God forbid. But at least we still have ownership of it. I'd like to plead to you to at least accept or give serious consideration to a 30-year lease, which is the same thing that the Historical Society has asked us to do, as well as one of their options. I think it was option number 3. And that's all I have to say.
Mr. Bishop?
I mean, I have to agree with him,
With who?
with Mr. Detman.
Okay.
And I'm torn, just like Mr. Stewart said
Okay.
a second ago. And I have to kind of back up what he said. I mean, I hope I don't offend you, but you're no spring chicken. I mean, you know what happens when you're ready to retire, and the next buyer doesn't have the same resume that you do.
Well,
This is part of the exercise program, Jeff, come on up.
I'm glad you asked that. I plan on working very closely with the university as far as training people and bringing on staff and stuff like that. I also have some individuals that are going to be working with me very closely that I think will just carry on the legacy after I'm ready to turn it over to them. So the idea is to keep it as an onward going thing. Like I said, I recently retired from my business, and my business that I had has grown considerably this past year with the new owners, and it's still Wahoo's Adventures. This is something that I hope to bring to Sebring that's going to be here indefinitely. And I do plan on protecting and saving those homes and making them as spectacular as I possibly can. I want to make them very welcoming to bring people in. To tell you I'm going to be here 15 years from now, I can't make that guarantee. You're absolutely right. And that's a big reason why I want to buy the property. Because if something should happen to me in 10 years from now, because this is a 10-year project for my wife and I. We do plan on working directly with the community and passing it on to community-owned people when we come to that point. But right now, I got pretty much vim and vigor in me. And that being said, I have to tell you, I wrestled for the United States Olympic team, and
I'm pretty sure you can probably still take me.
I wouldn't say that, but I'm glad to try.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So I think we've discussed this pretty much, and I'm going to say let's look forward to our CRA joint meeting at November 4th. I hope y'all will come, everybody that's interested. Between now and then, I think we all need to talk to, council members cannot talk to each other, but we can talk to the CRA, and we can listen to, the public input, and maybe you guys can talk to each other and come up with some compromises and figure out, where to go from here.
And
Mr. Lydell?
And that meeting will be at the Civic Center.
Yes. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
I think, just kind of listening to what's going on here, I think the sale of the property is probably almost a moot point. I don't, the city acquires these properties to grow. Although I like what Jeff's doing. I think it'd be fantastic, but I think the direction from city council may be to CRA to get to the next step, because if we go to the 4th, we're gonna come back and have kind of modified plans, but not probably where we're driving to, that both of these proposals include these two houses. So I think probably the direction to give to the CRA is to tell Kimley Horn that plan on having two houses there. We can always take them out.
Yep.
But I think that's gonna be a little more from what we've got going here, if this does happen, if you do decide to sell the properties. The other thing I'd like to say to Jeff is that, and this may be a scaled back project for what you wanna do from an outfitter, but we also have a women's club that's been vacant and nothing going on at Veterans Beach. We have a side beach there that can be utilized probably for parking boats better than you can down at the city pier. So I don't know if you'd be interested in that project at all. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's where Veterans Beach is, the big beach. Across the street it's the old women's club that's vacant. And so, that would be, that would house your activities there, but there's a lot more parking as far as for storage and that kind of thing than you have downtown as an option, but it'd probably still be a lease, you know, but it wouldn't be as much of an investment, I think, if you look at that, is what you're looking at here, so a lease may make sense, to put a business there, but I think the direction from the city council, from listening to everybody, is tell Kimley Horn that put the 2 houses in there and we'll figure out what to do with them after. I think the blue house either way is probably toast, but the 2 up on the hill is okay, so.
Yep.
David Liddell from the CRA. The purpose of the Kimley Horn needs a direction on what's going to be housed there, because they've included the outfitter concept in different locations. So I know you guys are in a tough spot, but you get paid the big bucks for this, and it's decision time.
Yeah.
So we need the direction. I don't feel comfortable asking Kimley Horn to come to the November 4th meeting without the direction, because it will require a 3rd meeting, and that's not part of our contract. And to bring them down for a 3rd meeting is an additional expense. So this is kind of our pretty close to the end zone meeting before it comes to you guys for the final blessing. So whether you don't want to do this tonight, that's fine. I'll give you one more kick the can idea if you need one. But
want another meeting?
but we need before we have Kimley Horn come down here, we need y'all to decide what you're going to do with the property.
Can I suggest then that maybe that everybody go home and think about this a little bit, and at our next council meeting, be prepared to make a tough decision. Whether the houses stay, whether they don't, whether we're gonna go with a full-blown outfitter, whether we're gonna sell the property or keep it. I think I'm getting a feeling that we're gonna keep the property. I don't know if Mr. Stanley's gonna still be interested in being an outfitter or a scaled-down version there. But we're gonna have to make some tough decisions. I think David's right.
Lease.
Yeah, I would have to think that how can we make a decision if we don't have an option? And
Right.
unless he is the outfitter, then we don't have an option. How can we make a decision?
Yeah.
So, I would be in agreement to, continue to push for you, Jeff, to lease that property. And structure it in such a fashion that it works for you.
Yeah, we would definitely have to change our plan.
Well, think about it and, get with us because I do feel like you have the consensus of this group that it's a great idea.
I'll get together with the CRA. It seems like the direction I need to go.
Okay. That would be wise.
I'm not going up to the podium, but it's not a dead dog yet. And, we're honored that you're even considering this.
Yes, sir.
So, is it a general consensus of the board up here that Mr. Stanley's proposal is probably more in line with what we're looking at rather than the other proposal from the Historical Society? At least can we give the CRA that much or not?
Yeah, I would say that it's the better use of those properties.
I'd have to agree with that, and that hurts my heart to say that, but, this is a definite shift from cultural to recreational with that, but I do think it's a much better fit to move forward in that direction and help this Historical Society any way we can to relocate their museum. And I'd really like you to take a look at the Salvation Army building. That was built in the 1920s also, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a really cool old building. It's downtown. Got a lot of foot traffic. You got a lot of special events down there that don't necessarily come down to the waterfront. And I think it might be a really good alternative for you to at least consider. It might have been already part of your consideration. That's why I was assuming.
That's a pretty good sized building also.
It is. It's got a lot of storage in the back. It's got nice access. You got a parking lot right behind that. Used to be the old First Federal Bank, if I'm not mistaken. That's got overflow parking back there. And then right down the street, you've got the Wells Fargo building with all that parking on weekends as well. And I'm sure during the day, we'll never fill up that parking lot, even if City Hall does move down there. So that's a hop, skip, and a jump to get to that. Even old folks like me would be happy to walk down that far to get to it.
I think the CRA is gonna put out a request for a proposal on that building shortly. So that's something to maybe, see, sir?
Since it's been out.
Yeah, they had 9,
Yes.
I think, a
Yeah,
pile of
yeah,
people.
but I think they're gonna redo it,
Yeah.
There's something about, serving alcohol there or something like that I think they're trying to redo. So, and get the deed restriction lifted. But- Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say that since we're able to negotiate with either party or both or one, maybe have them talk to staff, find out maybe where they could go, different avenues they're willing to go.
I think that would be a good idea, and I think maybe if the CRA is involved in that also, then that, I would think that would be a good idea. Sound good, David? Yeah, Mr. Stanley? Okay, all right. Yeah.
Who would be their point of contact, Mr. Nately?
Yes, I would think so.
Well, I want to make sure they understand who to speak to or come to visit.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to 10C. Okay, this is public hearing and proposed transmittal to add property rights element to city's comprehensive plan and first reading of ordinance 1470. Mr. Swain.
Ordinance 1470 is entitled, An Ordinance of the City of Sebring, Florida, amending the Sebring Comprehensive Plan, adding a property rights element to ensure that private property rights are considered in local decision-making consistent with Florida statutes 163.3177, parent 6, providing for transmission to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for review and compliance, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, we're going to open up a public hearing, and the purpose of the public hearing is to receive public input on an ordinance which will amend the City of Sebring's comprehensive plan, adding a property rights element. Our public hearing is open. And I'm going to defer this to Dana Rydell.
Riddell, yes.
Riddell,
Think of it
okay.
as just trying to get rid of me, Riddell. Yeah. And I will be quick. So, as you said, my name is Dana Riddell with the Central Florida Regional Planning Council. And on the agenda tonight, we have the private property rights element to be added into the comprehensive plan. House Bill 59 was passed on July 1st, 2021, which added a section into Florida statutes which basically says when we make decisions, we have to consider everyone's private property rights. And it's nothing new. It's things that already existed in Florida statute. It's just a matter of getting it into our comprehensive plan as a new requirement by the state. And I think you're all aware that we cannot do any comprehensive plan amendments or text amendments until we get this approved as required by the state. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any council members have questions?
Nope.
Nope. Anybody from the public have any questions? Okay. In that case, I'm going to adjourn the public hearing and go on to council's questions or comments. None?
Nope.
Okay. Request a motion? Like to request a motion? Anybody want to make?
I'll make a motion that we approve of ordinance number 1470 on first reading and transmit to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity
Second.
for review.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further comments from the public? Any further comments or questions from the council? Kathy, would you call the vote, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Dutton,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Leonard, you're a little slow on that one.
I was gonna
I waited for you. I waited for you.
Like you said,
Okay.
there's 5 of us up here.
Yeah.
Okay, we're now going to go to 10D. This is a public hearing to add a new future land use classification of high-density mixed-use redevelopment with site-specific application to 139 North Ridgewood Drive, changing the future land use classification from downtown mixed-use redevelopment to high-density mixed-use redevelopment, and first reading of the ordinance 1471. That is the background. Mr. Swain, would you give us an introduction of the ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. Ordinance 1471 is entitled, An Ordinance of the City of Sebring, Florida, amending the Sebring Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Element, adding a new future land use classification of high-density mixed-use redevelopment with site-specific application to 139 North Ridgewood Drive, Sebring, Florida. Parent lots 5, 6, and 7, Block 48, Town of Sebring, Highlands County, Florida. Parent. Changing the future land use classification from downtown mixed-use redevelopment to high-density mixed-use redevelopment, providing for transmission to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for review and compliance, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, we're going to start our public hearing, and we'll start that and say the purpose of the public hearing is to receive public input on ordinance which will amend the Sebring Comprehensive Plan future land use element, adding a new future land use classification of high-density mixed-use redevelopment with site-specific application to 139 North Ridgewood Drive, changing future land use classification from downtown mixed-use redevelopment to high-density mixed-use redevelopment. Sounds an awful lot like what you just said. Nonetheless, so the background of the proposed text amendment and the PowerPoint of plan development, Ms. Dana Rydell again.
Thank you. Again, Dana Riddell with Central Florida Regional Planning Council for the record. And as you noted, this is a 2-part request. The first part of the request is to establish a new future land use district. There are certain qualities about this district, meaning it would allow up to 117 dwelling units per acre, a floor area ratio of 6, and up to 25% of the development could be composed of non-residential uses. This new district or classification is a request from the developer in addition to the request to apply this new future land use to their property at 139 North Ridgewood, also known as the Nancessory property. I'm available for any questions that you may have, and the developer is also available for any questions.
This is a chance for the public to ask their questions about this this particular piece of property. So does anyone have any questions or comments from the public? Now's your chance. How about council members? Any questions? No?
I'm good.
Okay. My only question and concern is the parking, and I brought this up before. This is going to be about 50 apartments on this property, and there's only 30 parking places, so I am very concerned with that parking. I think the CRA has said that they plan on getting some auxiliary parking for it. So based on the fact that I think we need more parking, then and they have pretty much assured me that they're going to be looking for parking in the area to add to this, whether it's, we have a city parking lot directly behind us. And I don't want to give up that city parking lot, and I don't want to give up public access to it, but that's my biggest concern about it.
Well, I agree completely. And without the parking, I won't be voting for it. In the end, because it won't work. There's too many properties in the downtown that are being rehabbed. There's restaurants going in. It's going to get very, very busy down there.
Yep.
And, so.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Mr. Liddell.
David Liddell, Sebring CRA. We agree that there is a parking issue and that there's probably more parking issues to come. And we've been thinking about this and trying to work through it. I mean, there's an easy way that we could solve the problem. We could knock down the Wachovia building and build a big parking lot right there, and
Right.
we'd solve the problem tonight.
Amen.
But this project's going to take 18 to 24 months to complete. City Hall is on course for 30 to 60 years. with all the hoops we have to go through.
You're hitting us hard tonight.
I am. You got me here past my bedtime. I'm hesitant to take down the building right now and say that we'll just solve that problem. I think we need to let both games play out and understand that we're going to have to find a solution to the parking problem before we complete one or both of these projects. And that's something that the CRA is very mindful of.
Yeah.
So I don't want that to get in the way of voting for this, because I don't want to have to employ the nuclear option on that.
Okay.
So I have no problem voting for this, but I will have a problem if that hasn't been implemented.
No, we will. It's on,
Okay.
it is,
Yep.
even from a zoning issue on paper, while it may not, we could work it to where it doesn't look like there's a parking problem, I know that there's a parking problem down there.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments from council?
I'll just reiterate the parking issue. I mean, I'm not gonna beat it to death here, but, my wife and I spend a lot of time in other downtown districts that are more accommodating to the things that we like to do, Winter Haven, Lakeland.
You're not supposed to admit that.
Right.
So it's,
You're gonna stay here after we get all this.
So, and what I was getting at is that these areas did not plan for parking. And I don't want to see that happen to us.
Right.
Because that's always an issue.
Okay. Any other comments from public, council members, mayor? And I apologize for not hitting you every single time.
That's all right. Glad to sit back and listen.
Okay. All right, well,
I think
will-
Mr. Lee has a question
Oop,
or
oh,
a
I'm sorry,
comment.
Mr. Lee.
Sorry, Bobby Lee again. Jim Pollard hits me up about every week on why in the world, and I know you've all heard this and you've all thought it, and I'm sure the CRA's looked at it, but I'd just like to know from my perspective so I can tell him the next time he asks me. Why don't you tear down that ugly white curved bank building and let these folks have it to put their building up where you've got plenty of parking and plenty of space to build their building, and I hate to say this, but use an ancillary area for parking for downtown. I mean, I realize it's sacrilegious for Sebringites.
That's just
But,
too
you know,
dark creative.
As I'm sure that Mr. Lawrence would admit, the older you get, the more mellow you get.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll adjourn the public hearing and go on to council's questions or comments. Beyond that, okay. And, request a motion.
I make a motion, we approve ordinance 1471 containing the proposal of future land use, tax, and map amendments and transmit it to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for review.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further comments from the public? Any further comments or questions from council? Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Bishop.
Yes.
Cordell.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any business from the audience? I didn't see any. Okay. City Attorney's business. Mr. Swade.
For your consideration is Emergency Ordinance 1473, and it's entitled, An Emergency Ordinance Amending Ordinance Number 1458 to correct the Scrivener's error in Parcel 21 of the legal description of the annexation property on U.S. Highway 27 North in the Home Depot Lowe's area lying in portions of Section 23 and Section 26, Township 34 South, Range 28 East, Highlands County, Florida, into the City of Sebring, Florida, and establishing an effective date. The ordinance, when annexing them in, included two parcels that it should not have. This is making sure that it's excluded and not taxed as a city parcel. They're both vacant parcels, so this is not going to make a big difference to the city, but we believe it's appropriate for you to pass as an emergency ordinance. It has to be passed by a 2/3 vote.
Okay. Any questions from council? Who's the scriber maybe here?
Last name is Swain.
Oh, okay.
Darn Mike.
Any comments from council? Mr. Devon? No, Mr. Bishop? No. Okay. Request a motion.
approve ordinance. I make a motion we approve ordinance 1473 as presented.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Any further comments from council? Kathy?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Detman,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Well, that's the 2/3 you need, but I'll make it unanimous.
Oh.
It's your turn.
Okay. Oh, city administrator's business.
I did want to refresh council's memory, or everybody's memory, that the leases for the Weigel House and the Clavelli House expire today. This date was chosen because this disposition was going to be on this council's meeting tonight. So I'm looking for council guidance on what they would like to do in the interim, given that we're not making an immediate decision on those two houses.
I would say we do as we have done before, month to month, until it's resolved.
I agree.
Is that a motion? We need a motion?
Okay,
You wanna make
can
a
we do
motion
that,
on it?
Mr.
Is
Swain?
that a motion?
Amen.
That's a second.
And a third.
I want to ask Mr. Swain if we can do that on from a legal point of view.
You don't necessarily have to extend the lease. You simply can just, as the landlord, decide not to take action on the
Correct.
tenant that is residing in it past the date of the expiration of the lease. So you.
We just did. Okay.
So what are we doing? We're taking that vote away that you did,
No,
that motion?
we're not.
What
Okay,
was
so
the
what
motion
was
again?
The motion month to month is what I heard.
I'm sorry?
I heard the motion was go month to month until a decision was made.
Correct.
We're sticking with that.
And we had a second.
And I used the.
And the second was Leonard, and I'm a third.
I don't think that that's appropriate, but.
No, it's not.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public?
We do appreciate that. I only got one comment, if I might. If it's a month-to-month lease, normally, there's still a 30-day grace period for moving out and getting all your stuff together. So I would just anticipate,
You don't have to worry about that.
just throwing it out there
Yeah.
for public consumption.
Okay.
We're not that
At least.
mean, Bobby.
So you have one more month and then a month after that at a minimum, from what I understand.
Sure.
All right, okay, so we have any comments from council? Okay, Kathy, would you call the vote?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes. Okay. Is that it, Mr. Nicholas?
Yes, sir.
Okay, city clerk's business and announcements.
Council needs to approve the payment of bills, please.
So moved.
Okay, have a,
I have two correspondents,
Second.
one for first and one for second.
okay. Kathy, any comments from the public? Comments from council? Kathy, call the roll, please.
Bishop.